Don't forget that there is actually the phone versions as well. And we've got so you can actually have conversations with it as well in much the same way that we're talking, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, that is huge. I do that a lot on the desktop as well. The Windows 8 just chat away. And honestly, that can help your prompting a lot, because when you can ramble on a bit and be like, I'm thinking this, I might do that, and it will then organize your thoughts and say, okay, based on this, here's what I would do.
It's what I'm doing all the time. My boss knows this. I go off, take the dog for a walk. I offload my thoughts into a transcription. Copilot then makes sense of it. And sometimes it's actually creating the Cowork demos that I'm doing for customers, right? I'll say, right, I'm about to meet this customer. These are the people I'm going to meet. Let's have a conversation and figure out what would be the best demo. And then it will write the prompt that I should be putting into Cowork. It's fabulous.
Hey, and welcome back. This week we have Brett Johnson, a great friend and second time on the show. And basically, I peppered him with questions to decode for us what is a frontier firm, what's going on with the Anthropic models, Work IQ, a Cowork, and also helping us explain Agent 365, which just went GA. Many thanks to Brett for putting up with me asking him questions and putting him on the spot. He's always a great conversation and really great insights from him. And also many thanks to Luware, who are the sponsor of this podcast. Really appreciate all their support of the community. On with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Excited to have Brett on again. We had an awesome conversation in person. Must be a month, more than a month ago now.
The AI tool, right?
Workplace. Yeah. And we were like, can't talk about this yet, can't talk about that yet, but now we can. So, Brett, welcome back. For those that haven't listened to the last one, can you give us a little bit about yourself and your role?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And I appreciate being invited back again. So, Brett Johnson, Microsoft UK. My official title is a Copilot Global Black Belt. So what that means in English is that I support our field teams on anything and everything to do with Microsoft 365 Copilot, which of course morphs into agents and the Venn diagram of Microsoft 365 and Azure and Copilot Studio and all of that stuff. But I also got tentacles back into Microsoft Corp, engineering, technical program management. So there's a two-way street. So yeah, a pretty strategic role.
Yeah, a long history in our space as well that we won't go into this time.
We've known each other for a long time, Tom.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's interesting you say that actually about your role now, because it's really brought the worlds together. So obviously the kind of Dynamics part of the business and the M365 part of the business have come together. Right, and you've got Copilot Studio and you've got that. But then AI Foundry and the Azure side as well. So AI is really kind of interlinked. We used to talk back in the day about the three clouds. It really is a bit of everything these days.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, when I'm having conversation with customers about perhaps sovereignty, we'll get onto some of that later, no doubt. It's really important in order to make sure that we're very clear on what actually are we talking about. Is it the Microsoft 365 cloud, which of course by default includes the Copilot capabilities, but as and when it connects into Azure, which is ultimately where the AI models are, we need to be cognizant of that. And so what is true in one cloud perhaps is not true for another. So we just need to make sure that we understand all of that.
Yeah, I'm excited to decode that, and we're definitely going to talk sovereignty. But first thing, I want to get into Frontier. Like, Frontier firms as a concept is one thing, and then the Frontier program on M365 and getting early access things is a different thing, and we see lots of talking of both. Can you decode that for us?
Yeah, no, I will. And I will have a question back, actually, about what, from a partner point of view and your role within the MVP status, what Frontier means, because I don't actually know what that would look like on your side of the fence. I don't know, but I'll answer the question first, and then I'll put it back to you. So look, the Frontier program is something that's spun up probably about 6 months, maybe even a bit longer now. Things are happening at a rapid pace, everything, just losing track of time, frankly. But I guess think of the Frontier program as a preview program of the latest innovation that's coming from the AI world, whether that's something that Microsoft has hooked up as a result of the capabilities in OpenAI's LLMs or Anthropic's or whatever, and more on that and in due course, of course. But so within the Microsoft tenant, there is the ability to turn on and subsequently for you, the organization, to become a Frontier firm. And essentially what that means is that the capabilities across Copilot that are the new innovative things will be available for you, not necessarily for everybody. You can choose and select who gets this. But those new innovations will land in the tenant, giving you an experience for you to feedback and suggest where things are going well and where they're not, and basically get an early preview. But the difference here is
but kind of like what we would have called a preview program before. But
there is also a preview program. There's the public preview of stuff, and the fundamental difference is that the public preview is stuff that is going to come and land, right? But there may be, and I've seen it a couple of times, not very often, where the frontier program, the capabilities that have been tested augment into something else, right? So
yeah.
But I encourage you to do that.
Scheduled tasks on Copilot, for example, went back and forward on Frontier. It's like, are we going to go with this model or are we going to go with that model?
But there's also, and again, depending on the audience, there's actually a frontier program outside of just the technical capabilities of features and product bells and whistles. But there is a program where individuals can actually be part of a wider community. And again, depending on the customer, frankly, whether or not there's opportunities to speak to the product engineering and the product marketing teams as well. So it's a pretty broad program, but good. And what about your exposure to it, Tom? What do you get as from your side of the fence?
Yeah, so with MVP, we've got access to some extra access in terms of Frontier. My tenant's in Frontier, so all our users are in Frontier. We opt in like any other organization as MVPs to go in Frontier, but then we fortunately have the little bit of MVP access, which is not necessarily early feature stuff above Frontier, but a bit more explaining about.
So we probably have a similar experience, right? I imagine.
Yeah. I back and forth, but I think the Microsoft internal people are slightly ahead of us, which is always fun to hear what's coming and then see what we've got versus what you've got.
True,
but
true.
I mean, the funny thing is, it's all moving so fast, as you said, that like keeping up is a real challenge and getting time to experiment with everything.
Yeah, that is true.
So like Frontier, that explains it nicely. And then like Frontier non-technically, so you'll see this in the Microsoft blogs, like they talk about Frontier firm in the concept of making use of these capabilities. So to be a forward-looking AI firm, you don't necessarily have to be in the Frontier program. It's just kind of a mix of terminology. Yeah. But many of them are because they want to be getting early access to the latest stuff and see what's going on.
It's being at the tip of the spear, right? It's having those capabilities at work and you being able to utilize perhaps what you're experiencing in your personal lives and the AI experiences that you have from outside of your Microsoft work experience, being able to have that experience inside of work in that secure governed environment. Right.
Yeah, and I would say it's a massive benefit. Things like Cowork now, which have come to Frontier, like that we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
That's a huge step forward in functionality. And you want at least, I think, some people in your organization understanding that before it goes to the masses of your organization. And Frontier gives you that really early access of, how can we start thinking about this? How can we start thinking about adoption and training, that kind of thing?
It helps you get your head around it, right? Because we announced, and I know we'll go on to this as well, so these are little snippets for later in the conversation, is Agent 365. So it's the 1st of May today. We GA'd Agent 365 and E7, right? And we found out, well, you found out about that a little while ago, but under the covers, it was there, ready to go essentially, but we needed to make sure that you customers are at least educated about what it is in order for you to be ready for when it lands, for you to then make decisions as to what it means to you and whether or not it's something you want to turn on.
Yeah, and it's nice to see Microsoft taking so much feedback. And frankly, the whole world is moving so fast, this space at the moment, that like getting it into customers' hands and seeing what lands and what doesn't and what should be different, it's going to be an agile world moving forward in this space, I think. Even
more so than it is today.
Yeah. Right. So we've nailed Frontier, I think. Let's talk Anthropic, because Satya has said a few times, we're a multi-model company. We want to provide the best and the options to our customers. And that was said for a long time. But for the longest time in Copilot world, really, we were tied to the OpenAI models for most use cases. That's changed quite radically in the last few months.
It has. So the capabilities that Anthropic has enabled have really brought to life additional capabilities across the Microsoft stack, right? So the OpenAI models are within the service boundary, bound by enterprise data protection, the security, the governance, all of the security controls and labeling, all of that stuff, which is fantastic. And they're great at what they do. But what we're beginning to see, as I'm sure everybody is aware, is that there are multiple LLM providers and they're kind of leapfrogging one another with capability. If we rewind a couple of years, it was all OpenAI, GPT model, this, that, and the other. And then Anthropic released Claude, and then the capabilities there came, and everybody got quite excited about vibe coding. We should have a conversation about that as well. And the models are different, and they are. There are some areas where they really exceed, and other areas where they outperform the other. And the Anthropic model,
or tool use is what Anthropic seem to nail with their model and their harness, and that maps so well to our world of graph and APIs and application integration. As you say, then GPT-5.5 dropped just recently as we record, and Sam's already rumoring 6, and it's like it really is this one, then this one. I guess it's nice in the Microsoft world to have the option to not be tied to just one horse.
Well, and we've ultimately got multiple harnesses now, right? So we have the harnessing for OpenAI and for Anthropic, and then depending on the use case and what's required, then the models will drive the appropriate behavior. And so for those of you that have experienced Cowork, that's fundamentally being driven by the Anthropic models, it's astonishing. Connecting that into
it's a massive step forward in terms of functionality. A lot of the things that I felt like we wanted in M365 Copilot, like just send an email for me, just book a meeting for me, are things that I think now, particularly in the agentic world, are expectations of what an agent should be able to do. Cowork can do that stuff.
Yeah, it's brought it to life. But it's not just Cowork, right? So you now have the option. Again, it depends on where you're at from a customer point of view. Have you turned on Anthropic? Because there are controls there. And I think it was last week, actually. So what's the last week of April? We enabled the capability for you to turn on Anthropic, but also limit it to a subset of users, right? Which is welcomed, and hopefully that will be the experience.
So talk us through, Brett, why, because this is a tricky conversation. Like OpenAI models all run in Azure. There was nothing to turn on or off.
And when we say
really,
in Azure, what we mean is within the service boundary, right? Within the Microsoft first party.
Yeah, keep me honest with the terminology. That's a good point. First party, yeah. So whereas Anthropic is different. So explain how it's different.
Yeah, currently different. So look, when was it? Probably October time last year, there was the announcement that we were going to involve more models in Microsoft 365 Copilot, which was all very exciting. And so we enabled the control that would connect to Anthropic. Now that actually is an external connection. So it's not running within Microsoft service boundary. It's obviously fully secure. It's a stateless operation, but it was running, and to a degree right now, running within Anthropic services in the US.
Yeah, so Microsoft went to Anthropic, checked them out, checked the data was being processed correctly, and said, we trust you guys to process, but now we have to ask our customers on a case by case, do they also
so that was part one. And then on January, I think it was the 6th, may have been the 7th, Anthropic became an official sub-processor. Right, so essentially, all of the DPIAs, all of the security infrastructure, the legal agreements of how it all works, and Microsoft making sure that the terms and conditions of how technology is processed is adhered to, essentially. So there was legal documentation. They became an official sub-processor. And look, Anthropic are many sub-processors, or one of many sub-processors that actually make Microsoft 365 Copilot work. So this is not unique. And then currently, the Anthropic services are in the US. And then there is a big ask for the Anthropic services to be available within the EU. And that is coming. The plan currently is for it to be within this calendar year. I anticipate that we'll see it sooner rather than later because of the because of the amount of asks that are coming.
Yeah, it's a big ask. So obviously, Brett and I are both in the UK. Lots of exposure to global customers, obviously, but lots in Europe and lots of European customers, and UK, not technically in EU, but in physically in Europe. Like people for various reasons want their data processed locally. So this is not data at rest. This is just data processing. But today it would bounce out to the US and back.
Look, the plan is to have Anthropic services within our service boundary, just like the OpenAI services do today.
Yeah, that's really exciting because that just makes some of the conversation for legal teams inside of customers easier because it's all the same as it was. Even if they think it's safe and they're happy with it from a security point of view, just the steps to go through. I'm thinking particularly legal customers, like we've agreed with our customers this thing and that thing. It's just tricky.
And it's timely, Tom, actually, because I actually had a conversation with a customer just yesterday on exactly this, is that the agreement with their customer on this. And, it's very, very timely. And look, Anthropic won't be the last. There's more on the horizon, right? For those of you that are familiar with the admin console, you'll see that XAI is there. Not as a sub-processor yet, but there's exciting times ahead.
It really is. And it's interesting if we look at the AI Foundry, which is different. So that's where you can choose to consume various models from Microsoft. There are hundreds of models on there, including Microsoft first-party ones, but tons of third parties as well.
Yeah, and that's running specifically within our European data centers. So we do have... and again, for those listening in the UK, we do have OpenAI models within the UK from a sovereign point of view. But there is an ask to grow that from an Anthropic point of view. But I think we've got to walk before we can run. So we'll see the Anthropic services within the EU first.
I think the demand. I mean, the Anthropic have been on an absolute tear in terms of capabilities, and it just seems to be a really nice match with the M365 world. I mean, let's go into Cowork a little bit more. So Cowork, as I understand it, is essentially works closely with Anthropic, that similar model, whereas Anthropic made Cowork work on a desktop accessing files. A Microsoft version of Cowork is in a container in the cloud, respecting all the Microsoft security boundaries, auditable, controllable. Correct.
Everything that you've just said. So all of the prompting, the conversation that you have with it, ultimately stored within the Exchange user's mailbox as prompts versus purview, depending on what it's doing. So you've got the full governance, but it really comes alive with the Work IQ, right? And so what's Work IQ? So essentially, if you think about again, if you're familiar with the Microsoft ecosystem, we've had something called the graph, right, which was essentially the breadcrumb of how you interact with your mailbox and Teams and things like this. And then when we start looking and adding memory, right, and customization to the AI models, as in your settings within the Microsoft 365 app, to be clear, right? And then we've got this inference layer, right? So it kind of knows what's going on at the time of you interacting with it. And so it really starts to bring things to life. And I'll tell you a story. I was working with a colleague, and we're just planning for a meeting that was happening. It was actually on Thursday, so it was early this week. And I was talking to Cowork, I do a bit of research and do this, that, and the other. And it kind of then said, well, but you're in the meeting with so-and-so right now. And I was like, I am. So can you pull the transcript from that and add that into the thought process, which it did do. And it was kind of things like that where you really start to see and feel Work IQ come to life. And if I'm beginning to see that, then you're going to see it very shortly, if not already.
Yeah, Work IQ, this is one of the rare, if I may say so, times the Microsoft marketing team have got a really good name and terminology. Like, it perfectly explains that we're taking all the knowledge of what's going on in the organization. So for me, obviously a lot of team stuff. So Teams meeting transcripts, your chat, your emails, your SharePoint, your OneDrive, all again respecting what am I allowed to access. But it's not just like it's a layer or an MCP over graph or a connector. There's a lot of work being done at that Work IQ layer to optimize, cross-reference, help the AI use that data.
Yeah, no, it's pretty phenomenal stuff. So have you used it much? I'm assuming, because it's not right. So people might not that listening to this, the customers may not think, what are they talking about? We don't have access to this yet. But if you're on Frontier, i.e., if you turn it on, then this is a feature capability that you could get access to today, right?
Yeah, it's really, really impressive. So we've got it on. But the interesting thing with Work IQ is you can access it through your Copilot experience. So when you're asking Copilot things that would live on the other workloads, it's probably Work IQ, and it's increasingly Work IQ. But also there's an MCP connector. So I've connected the MCP to various scenarios I use.
Yeah.
So I have an automation that shoots me a daily summary, like what emails have I got outstanding that I should look at. And it's using the semantics of my email is a nightmare, right? I get a lot of inbound. So it's like actually just pick out for me what I've missed that is important and needs some. And it's very good at inferring out of the 50 emails, actually jump to these 3, watch out for this meeting. You've got this tomorrow, that level of inference. And anything I've done on Teams as well, meetings, prep calls, it can pull insights out of those as well. But
it obviously is way more than that, right? So there was a demo. There's a demo that I did at Cowork at an event I did for public sector in the UK a couple of weeks ago, where I actually got Copilot to manufacture a bunch of freedom of information requests, pretending to come from the public to said central government departments. And I think I created 10 FOI letters, and I essentially dragged the Word documents that were not real, but into Cowork. And it was a bit of a long prompt, but it kind of just said, look, here's some FOI requests. I need you to just rate them, understand the severity or the impact of what's being asked, create this Excel spreadsheet that summarizes it all, then go and rewrite the replies just to say thank you for sending the FOIs in. We're going to work on them as per the SLA, blah, 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 blah. It went then and processed them, right, to actually write the official responses, put that into another Excel spreadsheet, as well as create a PowerPoint that was actually for the individual to then go and review and present to their team, packaged it all up into an email ready to be sent. And it did it in minutes. It was incredible what it did, right?
Yeah, that document creation. The first time I've started using it for PowerPoint creation, and PowerPoint creation I feel like is feels like the AGI test these days. Once AI can do decent PowerPoint, everything else is going to be easy, because that's been the hardest thing to nail. But Cowork is the best so far at generating decks, and it's doing that in the container in the cloud, and then when those documents are ready, putting them into your OneDrive, so it's all secure end to end.
And so the input assets and the artifacts that come back out, you're absolutely right. There's an input and an output directory within OneDrive, and of course the labeling of the documents and the security wrapper is all there as well. It's all there. Yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff actually.
But it's even it's things like it can now scan my diary and move meetings and send emails and schedule tasks as well. It really has jumped from a thing I prompt in classic Copilot to do a thing into a Coworker. Again, well named. Anthropic take the credit for this name, but Cowork is a very good name.
But don't forget, you can also talk to it, right? So as we're talking today, Tom, I guess a lot of people may be thinking about the Microsoft 365 app or through the browser, but don't forget that there is actually the phone versions as well. And we've got the recent iPhone CarPlay. Android is coming. So you can actually have conversations with it as well in much the same way that we're talking, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, that is huge. I do that a lot on the desktop as well. The Windows 8 just chat away. And honestly, that can help your prompting a lot, because when you're prompting by typing, you're liable to do the shortest possible thing. When you can ramble on a bit and be like, I'm thinking this, I might do that. How about this? Remember that? You can just literally, you can ramble away a bit, and it will then organize your thoughts and say, okay, based on this, here's what I would do.
It's what I'm doing all the time. My boss knows this. I go off, take the dog for a walk. I offload my thoughts into a transcription. Copilot then makes sense of it. And sometimes it's actually creating the Cowork demos that I'm doing for customers, right? I'll say, right, I'm about to meet this customer. These are the people I'm going to meet. Let's have a conversation and figure out what would be the best demo. And then it will write the prompt that I should be putting into Cowork. It's fabulous. Love it.
Yeah, I love that. I do use voice a lot. In fact, I probably tip the point where I'm more voice than typing. Certainly with AI, it's always voice first when I can. The mobile app is great as well.
I must admit that one of the things outside of work, I'm doing a bit of vibe coding, and there's the odd YouTube channel that I'll go and look at just to keep up to date with things, and actually being able to just talk interact, plan what it is I'm going to go do, and then it goes and executes on it. It's super. It really is.
Nice. Well, to tell us what you're doing with the vibe coding. So I was at Microsoft a few weeks ago, and I feel like 50% of the sessions with product teams were like either Copilot CLI or Claude Code, and they were like, watch this, watch that. We've got MCPs for all this cover. That space is super interesting. Do
you know what, Tom? I appreciate you asking the question, because actually this is really helping me learn. Because we all have to learn, right? It's not something that we just know, right? You have to take time out to actually fiddle and get, explore and be curious, right? And about a year ago, I got into telescopes and astrophotography. It's always been something that a little itch that I've had for all of my life. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and do this. Anyway,
feels very on brand for you, Brett.
Yeah, well, thanks. I went down a rat hole, and I ended up. And for those of you that are into this or photography and sorts, you'll know that you have to take long exposures, and you end up with multiple files, and you can end up with hundreds of files. And I was going through this routine thinking, crap, there's got to be an easier way of how I organize my life. So anyway, I was chatting to Claude, and I said, right, here's my problem. This is what I'm going to do. It was actually on a flight to New York. It produced a technical spec, which was 24 pages long, right? And then I gave it to VS Code that ultimately I then just said, look, here's the spec. Can we make this thing? But I don't really know how to make it. So can you help me make it? Which it did.
Yeah.
And the net result now, I plug in the telescope. It recognizes what it is. It pulls the files off. It organizes the files. It deletes the files off the telescope, and then imports this into this log, into this application that explains what the object is, all of this stuff. And yeah, it's really cool. It's a personal project. Maybe one day I'll widen the net and others can use it. But for the moment, it's keeping my life in check. But the point is, Tom, going through that, I've learned a tremendous amount outside of my day job into the curiosity of building things and using different models and getting exposure to different extensions and add-ons and all of that stuff. It's been good fun.
It's amazing. It's such an exciting time to be doing things like that. I mean, we're only a small organization, so we're only 10 people, but like things that you wouldn't have been able to do before, you can now be like, we do a lot of content, as you know, the newsletter, the podcast, content pipelines, organization, research, like all of that stuff. And you hit a key point there, which is, I don't know how to do it. Like, this is something we're trying to instill internally. It's like, just say to the AI, I want to achieve this. I don't really know am I even asking the right thing? Ask me, go back that PRD thing of creating a spec, like getting over the hump of like, I can even say, I vaguely have this idea. What would the best thing to be? Ask me questions, and it will come back at you being like A or B, this or that, like it's amazing.
There's, Microsoft is about to release the new work trend index for 2026. And for those of you who are like, what's that? So if you go and have a look at WorkLab, so aka.ms/WorkLab is where there's a whole bunch of research, and the work trend index for Copilot will land shortly. But a couple of years ago, there was one specifically about the habit. And so I feel as though I'm completely wired in now, right? So everything that I do, whether that's in my personal life or at work, how can AI or Copilot help me, right? So, but you need to build the habit, and you need to be in this kind of mindset. And so it was really interesting reflecting back on this work trend index report from a few years ago, just how real it is, because you need to think like that. You need to build the habit. I think the next generation, it will be by default, but maybe for a number of us, it's a muscle that we're having to strengthen and to learn.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely resonates, and it is, and it's once it starts to click, you're like, well, I'll try that first and work backwards, and then you're like, oh, it can automate this, it can do that, it can help me with this.
I hope I didn't bore you with my astrophotography.
No, it's awesome. It's nice to hear a little bit of personal. I agree with that personal project, particularly if you're a listener and you're in an enterprise. Like, there's going to be gates, there's going to be control. Quite right, there should be. If you can find something out of work that you can vibe code on and mess about, you can take that understanding back to the workplace. That's going to set you in good shape, I think.
And I think to just double down on that, and maybe to just to close it out, if there is an action or some form of activity that you do, you can then transpose that into some instruction set, whether that's a declarative agent or Copilot Studio or Cowork. And there's these skills in Cowork that are coming as well, right? And the skill.md files, which will then consistently do what you've asked it to do. But because you know what it is that you do, and you can put that into practice, then it can really transform how it's done. And that's this is the change that we're going through.
Nice. Last thing I want you to decode for us, Brett, is Agent 365. So as we record, it's GA.
It is.
It's been in preview
today.
for a while.
Yeah.
So what is it? How do I use it? What's it for? Like, where does it fit in this story?
Yeah. No. It's. Thank you for asking. Right. So basically, we know that there is going to be a large number of agents that are potentially going to be created across the organization, and there are many canvases in order for that to happen. Right, so there's Agent Builder within the Microsoft 365 app. There is obviously Copilot Studio for those individuals that have access to that and want to then perhaps do more. There is, you've already mentioned about AI Foundry, but also agents can be made in other third-party systems as well. So there is likely to be an explosion in some way, shape or form of agents that will assist this digital transformation of stuff. There is nervousness around this explosion about how they are managed, how they are governed, what's the life cycle management of those agents.
And valid nervousness. We've seen this before in Power Apps and Power Automate and like Team Sprawl. Like this is the next potential sprawl.
Yes, that is very true. So what Agent 365 will provide you is essentially the observability and then the subsequent controls in order for you to manage agents, give it this life cycle, be able to turn them off, be able to manage them, be able to gate them, right? So as and when agents get created by individuals, that they want to be able to have them published or not, and control the sharing and all of those types of things. So basically it's a way of providing security and governance for the agentic world that we're about to move into, in addition and as to how you govern and manage people. So Entra ID is typically Azure Active Directory and old money is where we will go and manage all of those things. There's a new concept called the Agent ID. And so as and when agents become into the mix, you can choose to give them an Agent ID because there's a foundational layer, and then there is the Agent 365 capabilities that will turn on and give you enhanced observability and things like that. So what's interesting though, Tom, is that it's not just a capability that you see within the Microsoft admin portal, right? Because it wraps around Microsoft Purview and Windows Defender. So the controls that we have to keep Entra ID objects safe and secure, we're utilizing those same controls that you're already aware of to keep your agents safe and secure.
Yeah, Microsoft have a pretty good foundation in like thinking about people and security and RBAC and access and logging and control and Purview and Defender as we play into that story. So take that story and think about it in agentic terms, I guess.
So yeah, and look, that Agent 365 is available now, right? It's been a long time coming, frankly, and it's quite exciting. I was looking at it today. There was a load of capabilities that landed in my my demo tenant literally just last night in preparation for general availability. And it's really quite exciting, and it's really nice to kind of see it come together, to be honest. Yeah, it really is exciting.
You mentioned their third parties, but I think that's a key part of the story is like being realistic and pragmatic. Like different organizations are going to have mixes of platforms. We see all the big providers having an agentic option, obviously. Yeah. So how does that third party piece come into play? Yeah,
so good question. So via and currently the Agent 365 SDK, so the software development kit, it's essentially you wrap those third-party agents via the Agent 365 SDK, and then those third-party external agents that doing whatever can appear within Entra ID and then subsequently manage accordingly. So, that we'll see more on this as we go on the journey, right? There's we've enabled what we've enabled today, and then there's a whole bunch of capabilities. There's a new NDA roadmap that landed at the same time, right, Tom? And there's loads more. So what you see today,
yeah, we saw on the public roadmap some kind of clues towards like direct integration of registries and things.
That's right.
So stay tuned for that, I guess.
And I think one of the exciting things, I'm a very visual person, so Agent 365 provides this map capability, so you can see the worlds as to where agents have been created. And I think you shared with me a story not so long ago about Microsoft's view of Agent 365 and the sheer number, right?
Yeah, I think the numbers public, which is there's well over 500,000 agents live in Microsoft 365. We were on campus again a few weeks ago, and we got an NDA session on it, and it was like the scale is amazing. And if you think about, obviously, Microsoft are very forward leaning in this. Everybody's very incented to get into it. But like that similar kind of number of agents per employee, we can argue over what the number is, but there's going to be some number and they're going to need to be managed.
Yeah, well, exactly. And there's all sorts of places that agents can be created. There's SharePoint agents we necessarily haven't called out. So you've got the map visualized where those agents have been created, and also the third-party places as well. And
the other thing that was interesting was the agent-to-agent scenario, which is obviously going to come to life as well. Like, so we just got the SharePoint. You talked about skills earlier. We got SharePoint skills publicly launched. I think it's public preview launched a couple of weeks ago. But like, we're going to end up with scenarios where this agent is working with this agent, and what happens between them, and how do we audit that? Because now there's no human between those two scenarios. We still want to know what's going on.
You can still put a human in the loop, of course, right? You
could do. I don't want to slow it down though.
But no, you're right. And the map and some of the other, and the observability that we've got makes it simpler to kind of understand really quickly what's interacting with what and what's going on. Right.
Awesome.
So it's fun.
Brett, thanks for covering so many topics in such a short period of time. Hopefully we've given people some greater insight.
I hope it's been useful. We've discussed a lot, Tom, and genuinely I really appreciate being invited back. Obviously doing something right.
It was a great. It's I feel like I've thrown a lot at you and you've decoded it well, so I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing all of that. And maybe we'll do another one sometime and get more into your vibe coding and what you've done there.
Well, maybe let's do a part 3 in due course. Thank you, Tom.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it.